sitting over here, and I'm fucking thinking, and I had a flash of my mind. Here you are, you can't get your money from Larry, and you're not going to. I hate the fucking disillusion you. This cocksucker,
Hey.
What kind of a fucking guy? He couldn't wait for John to die to take the car.
Hey. So here's the proof, huh? Give the story because it's better than the truth, huh? Allegories will keep between me and you, huh? We get coins, never scraps. See, this a Bitcoin getting cat. So join, get it both, huh? Give the story because it's better than the truth, huh? Allegories will keep between me and you, huh? We get coins, never scraps. See, this a Bitcoin getting cat. So join, started get it federal, grabbed a Colombo. See proof of work, I made it legible. Move out to cyber, was keeping crimes off of the web for you. Started a special group, yeah, I went private. Fell in love with Bitcoin and started mining. That's when I started shining. Getting green, dropping gems. Rocking the comic club, got them sent. They laugh, popping limbs. Give them life, here's the boost. Gotta put in the work, here's the proof. So here's the proof, huh? Give the story because it's better than the truth, huh? Allegories will keep between me and you, huh? We get coins, never scraps. See, this a Bitcoin getting cat. So here's the proof, huh? Give the story because it's better than the truth, huh? Allegories will keep between me and you, huh? We get coins, never scraps. See, this a Bitcoin getting cat. So join, get it back.
Don't fucking truck me on next time! Please, kill me! Please! Oh, you worried about them not us? They're gonna kill me!
All right, welcome. Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
All right, this is Vinny here with Craig again. It's an intense intro. That's what the older one with a lot more violence in it.
It never gets old.
It gives me a chance to click on everything and make sure everything's set up because it's so long. So yeah, it's been a week. How you been?
Good. Happy to be back. A lot to talk about.
Yeah, these drones. I think it's like the number one topic of conversation, at least on Long Island. I was at Brokerage Comedy Club last week, and it was it was between the comics and in the employees. Everyone's asking, what's going on with these drones? What do you think it is?
Yeah.
Is it aliens? Is it Iran? It was such a funny story because it happening predictably, and then the aircraft itself having the lighting configuration of standard aviation on the U.S. I think kind of rules out that it's alien.
Yeah.
Sure they could copy it, but what are the odds that they're either copying it or they have the same green and red light configuration?
Yeah, and on that point, I think it also rules out that they're foreign.
Right.
If you're going to have foreign lights. Yeah, exactly. It would definitely be clandestine.
Yeah.
Which again leads me to the conclusion that it's also not nefarious.
Yep. It sort of struck me as something I didn't believe for a second, or I don't believe for a second, that the FBI doesn't know what it is. I think the federal government knows what it is, but I know that from my time there that there are instances when you may investigate something that people are reporting, but it's totally legal. And so because it's totally legal, you're not necessarily in a position to disclose what it is to the public. For example, if a company was using those drones legally, and then they were interviewed by agents and they said, look, the reason why, we're not making some sort of public statement about it is we have a competitive advantage using these drones, just making this up, right? To load and unload cargo off the shore. And honestly, we don't feel like going public with the fact that we're doing this because it's a competitive advantage for us. Then the FBI is under no obligation to go out and, go say, hey, what's going on is, make a big announcement about it. They would spread that information internally into other federal agencies. And every time you saw someone taking questions on it, it was the same kind of goofy answer, non-answer. It was like, don't worry about it, but we don't know what it is. Well,
yeah, but so if it was something along those lines, don't you think it would be, we know what it is, we can't disclose it, but it's nothing to worry about. It's not a national security risk, and it's not a public safety concern.
Issue. Well, they did say the public safety concern thing. I guess them saying they know what it is, it depends on whether that's just going to result in more questions being asked. I mean, there's no easy way around it. If they do know and they're concealing it, there's no easy way around calming people down, and not giving too much information. Like balancing those two would be pretty difficult to do. And if you keep saying you don't know what it is, you just look incompetent. There was that press conference. I loaded it up before here. Take a look at this.
What's the deal with those drones flying over New Jersey? Well, National Security Communications Advisor John Kirby talking about it at the White House briefing.
State or local law enforcement authorities corroborate any of the reported visual sightings. To the contrary, upon review of available imagery, it appears that many of the reported sightings are actually manned aircraft that are being operated lawfully. The United States Coast Guard is providing support to the state of New Jersey and has confirmed that there is no evidence of any foreign-based involvement from coastal vessels.
So that first part, I believe, right? Like the fact that, like, I don't know how many texts you've received, but everyone's seeing drones now because this is in the news.
Yeah.
So once there's a drone sighting, it's like the shark frenzy that happens every third summer, where now everybody starts reporting in. Oh, I heard there was a shark here or there. So these are mostly just regular people flying around drones, copycats, or people just effing around with their drone. And now people are reporting. But the drones that everyone's really focused on, the ones in New Jersey, were like supposedly 8 to 10 feet big. These were not commercial DJI drones that you or I would have.
Yeah, but the crazy thing is, if you really look closely at a lot of the videos that have been posted by people who are recording these things and wondering about what they are, is many of them clearly are traditional fixed wing or rotary wing aircraft.
Yeah.
I mean, they're clearly not drones. I mean, there's some that were clearly helicopters. There was one that even had the vertical stabilizer lit up, and you could see it was like a Southwest 737. Like, these people are.
Well, that's the problem, because the distance, you can't, at nighttime especially, you can't tell based on the lights how close or far something really is.
Right, exactly. So a lot of them are not drones. And I'm a drone pilot myself. I own many commercially available drones, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't tempted to start flying them over my neighborhood at night. So a lot of people
get videos. I thought of the same thing. There'd be 100 videos on Fixed Hills moms about drones, flying, and it's become people
frenzy.
Frenzy based on the reporting. But they're clearly looking for something, and I think that's where this is all going. So I'll continue the clip here. This is from a couple of days ago.
And importantly, there are no reported or confirmed drone sightings in any restricted airspace. Now, that said, we certainly take seriously the threat that can be posed by unmanned aircraft systems, which is why law enforcement and other agencies continue to support New Jersey and investigate the reports, even though they have uncovered no malicious activity or intent at this particular stage. While there is no known malicious activity occurring, the reported sightings there do, however, highlight a gap in authorities. And so we urge Congress to pass important legislation that will extend and expand existing counter-drone authorities so that we are better prepared to identify and mitigate any potential threats to airports or other critical infrastructure, and so that state and local authorities are provided all the tools that they need to respond to such threats as well.
So this kind of bothers me, right? This kind of circular logic. So on the first part of what he said was that there's no laws being broken. They're not flying into FAA restricted airspace, which would be a big problem. And they don't appear to be doing anything illegal. And then he switches immediately to, but this now shows us that there's a gap. And we need to now create additional authority for federal, state, and local agencies to go do fucking what? Like,
right.
You just said that what they're doing, it annoys me when we have situations where people are exercising their rights, and the government's response to that isn't to educate the people and say, hey, I know this could freak you out, but we need to talk about why it shouldn't. because it's they're not in the FAA airspace. They're presenting no risk to oncoming flights. Just merely flying around, drones merely flying around is a freedom that we all enjoy, or we should be able to enjoy within the restrictions of FAA airspace. No, instead it's like an immediate power grab. It's like, oh, people are afraid, and then the government's immediate reaction to that is to like create some sort of layer of control over, well, we're going to take advantage of that fear and then give you the solution, when lo and behold, it's very likely that the government, maybe not every person commenting on it knows, but there are people within the government who know, and they're probably likely behind this to some extent. So circular, right? Like the government creates the problem, the fear, and then they go, well, we have a solution for you. We're gonna create a new rule that says you need to have ABC licensing now to go fly, or you can't fly at night at all. Why? Because remember those drones off of New Jersey? Yeah, what were they? How were they bothering anybody? Maybe could be taking aerial photography or using their FLIR setup to go look for animals in the woods or whatever it may be. So it just annoys me that's like the immediate. They have to do something. It's like this. Do something, and then that law is created, and then it has like all these crappy downstream side effects down the road when you're like, why does this law exist? And you're like, oh, because 25 years ago, some people flew drones around New Jersey, or the government did, and then created a law around it. And now I can't fly my drone recreationally without taking like 27 hours of courses, to get licensed.
Well, I guess that's always been the danger of government, right? People will give up their liberty for temporary security. Ben Franklin cautioned against that.
Yep.
But, I think part of the problem here is that they want to have their cake and eat it too. And this kind of mixed signaling is what feeds into the panic and to the conspiracy theories. First of all, they waited too long to issue any kind of an official statement. And that in and of itself created fear and mistrust. Now that they're making official statements, they're saying on the one hand, there's no danger, there's no threat, but we don't know what it is. So how do you know there's no danger or no threat if you don't even know who's operating it and why? And so this is where we start looking into, well, what could potentially be the purposes for these operations and in this region, and that's something that a lot of people have been focusing in on very closely over the last several days, and there have been quite a few interesting theories on that.
I have one queued up that I think is pretty pretty good.
I have a lot to say about that.
Tomorrow, there's a little thing called the Army-Navy game. We wish both sides.
What is the White House reaction to President Xi being...
Okay, so here's let me stop sharing this screen.
There was a Pentagon briefing today, and the Department of Defense denied that these drones belong to them.
Mm-hmm. So here's an interesting theory.
Well, it's sure starting to look like the New Jersey drone mystery has been solved, at least in large part. And more than that, the culprits behind these drone swarms may have also been behind similar swarms spotted over Langley Air Force Base last December. And that culprit seems to be NASA, or rather a long list of organizations and corporations partnered with NASA on what they call the Advanced Air Mobility Mission. Now, near as I can tell, this theory was first posited by a TikTok creator named JK Ultra, but it first caught my attention thanks to that Intel guy. Then, since he pointed me in the right direction, I've been doing some reading, and I can now tell you that last December, the U.S. Transportation Command, Air Mobility Command, the National Aerospace Research and Technology Park, and the Atlantic County Economic Alliance announced the establishment of a testing corridor between Delaware and New Jersey for a long list of military, commercial, and academic drone technologies. And according to their press release, these drone tests would not only be conducted in and around military installations, but could instead be launched and recovered from anywhere within this drone testing corridor, which they identify as between Joint Base McGuire-Dix-Lakenhurst in New Jersey and Dover Air Force Base in Delaware.
You want to pause this for a second? It's outdated.
Okay, go ahead.
The Pentagon briefing today expressly denied that these drones are operating as part of a test with respect to this corridor.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So it's again, you got to take everything they say with a grain of salt, but there's been an official denial of that as a possibility.
So then the latest theory, is it the missing nuclear material?
Yeah, there was, there was a shipment in New Jersey of this GE68 pin that helps calibrate, medical machinery, I think for PET scans or something. And the shipping package was damaged, and this device with radioactive material in it was lost. But it's like, it's a very low hazard. It's like a category 3 radioactive.
You can't make a weapon out of it, but it is still toxic.
Just more generally on, whether there's a threat and that these drone operations are somehow trying to discover it or locate it, why would they only be searching at night?
I thought about that. I think there's a couple things like, first, heat signature wise, if it's nuclear material that gives off any kind of heat or heat radiation, thermally, I think it'd be easier to identify at night when things are colder. So the contrast, that's just again a theory. The other thing is the nuclear material, will give off all sorts of like radiation, gamma waves, and other shit. And I'm wondering if, for whatever reason, again at nighttime, it might be just something based on what's happening in and around that area during the day that makes the interference less during those hours. Again, just a guess. That it makes it more probable that they'd find it at night at nighttime than in daytime. And so I was playing around online last night, and this was a neat thing to talk to ChatGPT about. And there are drones out there that are equipped to detect these kind of things.
Yeah, sure.
And both from manned and unmanned. And so you wonder if it's one of those things where it's not a big deal, and they're just taking this opportunity to use these toys to basically train on, and it's now blown up into this big, thing inadvertently. And meanwhile, it's for some piece of technology used for MRIs that's really not presenting any kind of existential threat to anybody.
Right.
But I always think back to when the government buys stuff, and then if they don't use it, then there's a fear that they won't be able to keep it or get more of it. And so there's always like the government mindset's always like, if we have it, we have to use it. That's whether it's ammunition and ordnance or aircraft or equipment. It's like, oh, we just got from Congress all this money and we went out and bought all this stuff. And at the end of the year, if we don't show that we've used it, then we can't make the argument. And I always think back to like when Sandy happened here and Long Island was impacted pretty dramatically. Power was out everywhere, and the FBI office in Melville, they had reported that they sent this. The FBI has this giant semi truck that's basically like it's like the Foundation for Law and Government truck from Knight Rider, but inside it's full of computers. It's like a lab, and it's all satellite based, and it's the secret network for the FBI. It connects to the secret network for the FBI. And when Sandy happened, they were basically telling people, agents, like, get down to Melville and go in there and log in and fucking check some stuff and leave. And then you're like, I don't need to. The why? And they're like, yeah, we need to like and sign in and sign out. And you realize it was a dog and pony exercise to show that it was used in this crisis. Now, I don't blame. I'm the same way. If my power goes out, I kind of can't wait to fire up the generator and get the house on because I like to play with that stuff. But it's a little bit more sinister than that in the sense that it's now going to be reported that it was some sort of played some critical role, and it really played no role. It wasn't needed. Now, maybe if Sandy went on for months and months, it would be, but it wasn't. So my point is, like, I think with the drone stuff, it could be them saying, hey, we have this technology. We want to get better at it. And we're tired of doing random exercises. We think this thing was lost in this area of New Jersey where it came into the port. I don't know why they would think like if someone steals something from a package, like, why would it be in the woods? Like,
Yeah.
I thought maybe they looked up where the employees of those lived, and maybe they're flying over their houses to see if they're picking up any radiation coming from these houses that they could say, oh, this guy stole it. And it's sitting in his backyard. But again, like, how are they deciding what area to keep flying over? Why would they assume? What information do they have that even if it was stolen, that it ended up in this area?
Mm-hmm.
Looking for it. So, yeah, I don't, it doesn't. But I know it's not. What I could say is that it's not something that I don't know why people think it's like aliens or it's Iran. It just doesn't make.
Well, they think it's Iran because that idiot congressman said it was.
Yeah, why did he say that? I saw like a little quick clip on X. What was
I mean, he claims that he has very highly situated, very trustworthy sources that affirmatively acknowledged that there's this Iranian mothership off the coast of the United States that's launching these drones. And just the idea of that is absurd. I mean, there's no way that would be tolerated or permitted. There's this popular YouTuber named Ward Carroll that I listen to a lot. He's a former naval officer. He was a radio intercept officer on F-14 Tomcats, and then he got into media and press, and he was the public affairs officer for the Navy, both in uniform and out. And he was talking about how they used to fly out of Oceania and off carriers, and they would see everything that was anywhere close to the coast. So there's no way an Iranian mothership
is just sitting there off of New Jersey.
Yeah, I mean, the Coast Guard would be all over that.
Yeah.
So the idea of that is real, strikes me as absurd and highly unlikely. And once again, there's nothing clandestine about it.
Right, exactly.
These drones are not hiding.
You don't put green and red
anti-collision lights on.
You don't. It makes no sense that it's someone trying to hide anything. So whatever it is, they're doing it because it's likely totally legal and totally legit. And maybe there is no desire on their part to make have a press release about it. But I ran into some people I knew from my old job and people who kind of specialize in on the surveillance side, and they didn't know. But again, I believe that if it is the government doing it and it's something sensitive enough, they won't disclose that to anyone they don't have to disclose that to, because they just view it as an overall more negative than just letting people kind of freak out about it. Like, so No Fly Drone just wrote, I don't think it's DoD testing UASs over civilian populated areas. We test those on our installation, which has a restricted area for just that, and it's miles and miles of restricted area. I was visiting from New Jersey last weekend, and everyone there has lost their minds. I literally made a fake video outside, and everyone was like, yes, that's what I saw. Yeah,
well, my wife
it.
is from New Jersey, and they're crazy to begin with. So
yeah.
This isn't helping them. But, I mean, it could be, I guess, a red cell operation. It could be, one agency in government testing the capability and awareness of another, and that's why
Yeah.
the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, that's
Almost
a
like
possibility.
penetration test to see what the response would be. I just get pissed off when, like, if we don't find out, if they create all sorts of additional, like I was watching, you know, I've had drones for many, many years, and I've had various interactions with the public, and mostly good, but definitely some bad, where it's like any new technology. It's like, you know, when phones became popular on cameras became popular on phones, you know, there was this period of time where people were uncomfortable if you were taping their, oh, is my kid in your picture in a school thing, you're using your flip phone, and somebody's got a, you know, I don't like them taking pictures of my kid. And now, of course, it's like, yeah, it's impossible. You know, we could get used to it. And the same thing early days in the drone. I remember taping a soccer game, you know, from way down on the other side of the, you know, the schoolyard. And when I brought the drone in, a mother came over to me and she's like, "Oh, I noticed you're flying your drone." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah." And she's like, "I think it's really cool and everything, but don't you think it's dangerous?" I'm like, "How so?" She's like, "Well, what if it falls out of the sky and it landed on the soccer field?" And I was like 300 feet up. I was like, what is your concern that it just stalls out and then it happens to come down and land on a kid? I was like, yeah, I was like, I really don't, you know, the odds of that happening. And, you know, worry more about the 747 falling out of the sky and taking out a whole neighborhood if you're not worried about that. So people have to get used to it. It does bother me that, you know, if it creates a enough of a panic that there'll be this, you know, negative, this negative impression for people of like, I hate those fucking drones, you know, these drones flying around, you know, and people want to shoot them down, and people, you know, and you know, again, just like camera phones and stuff, it's really not something you need to be concerned about, as long as it's not in a bathroom stall kind of situation. You know, plenty of people recreationally
Well,
fly,
I mean, I
fly
guess
drones
people, you know, there is a privacy concern. There is, you know, if you're flying it over someone's yard or near their windows looking in, you know, you've got to look, as a drone pilot, you have a responsibility to operate them responsibly. And that comes with being a good citizen and a good neighbor and trying to avoid upsetting people regardless of whether their feelings are rational or not, you know. But I just think that this frenzy has created an irresistible urge for people to get up there, get their drones out, see what they can spot, or just blatantly antagonize people and try to create more sensationalism.
Right. Yeah, I'm looking at YouTube now on the latest, if there's anything super new.
You know, the other there was some jackass who owns a drone company who was talking about missing man-portable Russian nuclear weapons.
Was this the Ukraine thing or something? Like I saw that.
So when the Soviet Union collapsed, there were weapons, not only weapons of mass destruction, but conventional weapons as well, that were in all the former republics. And they were left in the hands of these generals and military leaders who weren't collecting paychecks, weren't getting paid, were extremely corrupt, and a lot of that stuff disappeared.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the conventional weaponry disappeared. It's part of the reason why the Russian army was so inept when they first went into Ukraine. Their equipment, their MREs were rotted. Their equipment was worn out. It was inoperable. And that's because a lot of the good stuff had been sold by these corrupt officers. And so I had read a book called Germs, and it talked about Soviet biological weapons and how after the collapse of the USSR, these weapons were left really unsecured. And that was a threat. But as far as the nuclear weapons go, and you can take this for what it's worth, but Russia denies that there are any of them that are missing.
Right.
Yeah. And I do think that if there was a credible threat,
there would be a much different response than
it
this.
would be, I mean,
you know,
the area would be covered,
yeah,
you know, with
yep, agreed,
military, FBI, ATF.
Yep.
There'd be no hiding it,
yep,
you know, and it would be 24/7 cycle
exactly.
of looking for this thing. So I don't think it's that. I don't think it's a leak of some kind of radiation. You know, you couldn't hide that. People would be getting sick.
Yep.
Especially, you know, if it was serious enough. And if that was the case, I mean, even the communists evacuated Chernobyl.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you know, our government isn't.
Yeah,
know,
but they don't have Biden.
Right. So
they had Gorbachev when Chernobyl happened.
That fear is unfounded as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think like No Fly Drone is saying in the chat, a lot of the shit is the same stuff over and over. The other orbs are actually out of focus stars. And that's what's so fucking annoying about this is you're getting the initial reporting was accurate and legitimate. And now it's so crowded out by the false sightings of orbs and, you know, the guy's got, you know, smegma on his camera lens and he's like, it's an orb, you know, you're like, no, or that's, you know, it's an orb. You're like, that's Jupiter from your cell phone, you know, because you know, it's hard to tell distance. So you're like, how far or close something is. It might seem close and blurry, but it's actually very far and blurry.
Yeah.
You know, so but on a camera, it's, and, you know, at nighttime, it's very difficult to determine that. So, you know, I do wonder with Trump coming in, right? It's one of those things like he says he doesn't know. And why would he right now? He's not sworn in yet, but I'm sure he'll ask about that like right away. And you wonder, you know, what his reaction to that is going to be, you know, and
well, he's already talking about shooting him down.
Yeah. Which is stupid.
Pretty stupid.
Yeah. There's no reason. Again, I compare it to like you know, when you watch, you know, these First Amendment auditors and, you know, there's somebody, you know, open carrying in a state that you're allowed to open carry or you're required to open carry. And they, you know, law enforcement will make contact and say, well, we just got a call in from somebody that said they were nervous because you were, you know,
you have an AR-15 on you.
Yeah. And you're like, yeah, but what's the crime you suspect me of? Well, we have to make sure it's legal. And the Supreme Court's been very clear on that like just by virtue of you carrying, you know, the cop can't use that as the reasonable suspicion or probable cause to make contact and demand ID, because on its face, that is a completely, in that state, depending on their laws, that could be a completely legal thing. And so, you know, I look at it like when something like that happens, then if the government really wants to know, you can't shoot it down because obviously, first of all, danger to the people on the ground side.
Right.
You know, your response shouldn't be, I saw a car that might match the description of a stolen car, you know, so I fucking, you know, pit maneuvered it on the highway and it turns out it was just some grandmother. Oop, our bad. It doesn't, you know, you can't do that, right? You know, you can't escalate to that level for something that on its face is completely legal. Yeah,
and I think it could also be like a posse comitatus act issue. You know, if this is
especially if it's the military doing it, firing on civilian, you know, potentially civilian equipment. I mean, you know, I mean, I'm sure Trump, you know, when he says things like that, you know, it's just the way he talks. I'm sure once he gets there and he gets briefed in on what they actually do know, and what he can or can't do, he'll realize that shooting them down isn't good. But look, on the flip side, we had balloons flying over the United States a few years ago and just completely like didn't give a shit about it.
Well, you know what I heard?
Balloons and we're, you know.
Well, you mean the government didn't give a shit or the people didn't give a shit?
No, I think the government didn't give a shit. I think people were kind of pissed that, you know.
So what I heard was that the government didn't shoot it down because they were analyzing it and hacking it and, you know, getting into the system. And then once they understood the technology and had unlocked any secrets it may have held, then they shot it down. That's what I heard. You know, but
I would like to think that's true.
The frustration. over that whole thing with the Chinese balloon.
Yeah, no one likes to feel like, and this is the whole thing, right? So they fly a balloon. Meanwhile, we have how many, B-2s circling how many countries, taking all sorts of photos. So I get it. It's frustrating because, we clearly do that to many other countries in the name of national security with much better technology.
Yes, we have satellites.
Yeah, we have. I mean,
U-2s, SR-71.
But there's just something about something flying that close and low. It's like
I don't think it was that low. I think it was pretty damn high. I mean,
you could
they
see
needed
it,
an F-22 with a special model of AMRAAM. It's a radar-guided missile to take.
Is that what they used?
Yeah. Yeah. Talk about overkill.
The missile costs more than the balloon equipment.
Totally.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, raises an important issue about the future of warfare and the use of drones. We do have to come up with technology that is affordable. You're going to have swarms of drones that used for kinetic
that are cheap.
Yeah, and you can't use a $400,000 missile to take out a drone. So they're looking at microwave technology.
Yeah.
There's this Leonidas system that disables the drones with microwaves.
Right.
So,
Yeah, you see that video where they could basically jam it and send it a command like land, and it's basically hijacks the command and control from your remote, and it just forces the thing to land. I think the Ukraine thing, clearly has brought that to front and center. And anyone who didn't think that drones would play a major role in future kinetic wars, based on what we're seeing on the battlefield lines, it's changed. It's entirely changed the dynamic. And so in the future, sending a drone swarm where they're, $500 a pop to do the damage and remove humans from the equation is going to be the way these things are falling. They're very difficult to defend against just because of the number, there's the volume. You could take down 90% of them. That could mean 150 gets through still. If they send 1,000 and they get 90% of them, that's 100 that get through with explosives. So, and they're not expensive, and they're something that our children are being raised to pilot these things. I mean, you watch a kid on their PS5 or their Xbox, the muscle memory is already being trained. To take a person and put them behind that and say, learn this to the kid, that's going to be to a kid growing up, 10, 15 years after we grew up, that's native. That's something.
But they're so easy to fly anyway. They have, they basically fly themselves.
But I think they might be like the new fighter pilots. Like, yes, I understand. Like if you're just flying from point A to B, but if you imagine when the defenses match the offensive capabilities. And so if you are a drone pilot and you're flying it remotely, let's say through virtual reality, you would be basically operating something that would be the equivalent of you being in the cockpit of a traditional aircraft, that you're going to have countermeasures, you're going to have evasive maneuvers, you're going to have flying low, flying high, flying sideways, dropping your cargo or your payload potentially early or late. So I think there's a whole skill set to it that I think beyond just going from point A to B, would.
Yeah, but they're going to be autonomous as well.
Yeah,
they're going to be controlled by AI.
Yeah.
Your Chat GPT is going to
will be
Maverick.
Yeah, very true.
And so but I don't think drones are going to be operating in a manner that we think of fighter aircraft in the conventional sense. Dog fights and such. I mean, there may be some of that, but there's really no reason.
No, it's more. No, they're going to be used like bombers would be. They're there to deliver payloads and blow shit up, or reconnaissance, of course. But
they could be used to establish air superiority, but I just don't think that would be done in the conventional sense of dog fighting.
Yeah.
Who knows? I mean,
Yeah.
we won't know until.
Yeah. No, I don't think it would be with like munitions, right? Like, I don't think a drone would shoot down another drone. It's more likely that a drone would be equipped with technology to use radio frequencies, microwave, to disable other drones. Like, it's not going to be I shot you down. It's going to be I sent the signal that fucking made you land or made you flip upside down and crash yourself. So it's not going to be bombs and explosives. There's no point. That's stupid, right? Why would you your first reaction to be to to shoot down something when you can probably figure out a way technologically to do it a lot more stealthily to destroy it? But I mean, a drone swarm coming towards any given area is the stuff of nightmares.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I don't know. So that's the latest on it, huh? That's all we know.
Yeah, there hasn't been any breakthrough. I know you and I have been discussing it for a few days, and I keep waiting for mystery solved, but the official word is continues to be we don't know what they are, or we don't know who's operating them, but you have nothing to worry
about.
There's nothing to see here. Which again, it makes people very uncomfortable and curious. We have a natural curiosity to know what the lights in the sky are.
Yep. It's it's like that
but
episode.
Just like when you see a light in the sky, it's usually not a UFO.
Right. There's 9 out of 10 times there's a logical explanation for it.
And so that logic should carry over here.
Yeah.
I have a very good friend. I love her to death. She's very smart, very inquisitive, very resourceful. But every time she catches wind of a new situation, she automatically thinks it's the zombie apocalypse.
Yep.
With COVID, she fled the state and went as far away from other human beings as she could possibly get. With this, she's convinced it's either a radiation leak or a Russian nuclear warhead that is going to be detonated at a specific time. And how far do I need to run
at
with
the
my
John Bon Jovi rest stop in New Jersey? That's going to be ground zero.
So, but it's just, chances are it's a very mundane thing, and it's
I agree.
No reason to relocate over this.
That's crazy. That's a byproduct of the whole COVID stuff too. Like, there's people that are just kind of been damaged from that. They're like people who dated a bad ex, and now you're like, man, you're just damaged. Like they can't be normal in a relationship because some experience just burned them so bad. And now you're like, it's, to move or relocate or worry about to anything on that level when all indications are this is going to be a nothing burger in the end. But I do want to know what it is. And I do get annoyed that I don't want something else to fill up the news cycle. And then it's like, oh yeah, whatever happened to those drones? Oh, we never got news on that.
Well, won't that be interesting? Won't that be interesting? If something happens,
right,
people move on and then you stop hearing about them.
Yeah, that annoys me. Because then, it's and that happens all the time. Like the news cycle fills up with something new, some other disaster happens, and then, no one's talking about that anymore. So, we'll keep an eye on it. I have people coming into my house now. It looks like upstairs, so I'm going to be interrupted any minute. So, I'm glad we could talk about this a little bit. I was hoping to have more information by today, but as soon as something else pops, we'll jump on and we'll try to do this weekly at a minimum. Keep it going.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Take care.